Disappointing job numbers out today. In March, the U.S. economy adding only 126,000 jobs and the unemployment rate holding steady. So is the economic recovery already losing momentum in 2015? Joining us now, our political panel, the National Review's Jillian Melcher and the Washington Post's Philip Bump. All right, I'm going to go to you first, Philip, because there's some other numbers that we left out of that intro that are pretty staggering. 93 million Americans out of work. And the Fed has cut their growth forecast down to zero. Now, the New York Times called this report, quote, muddy. Do you think it's muddy, or do you think it's a different adjective, perhaps?
No, I think it's muddy. I mean, I think there were really three factors that came into play here. There was the bad weather. I mean, you saw what happened in Boston. Obviously, economic activity will be different there. Oil prices dropping means that there were a lot of mining jobs lost in the oil sector, in Texas in particular. And then the strong dollar, which is generally good news, but it makes it harder for exports because you're not going to make as much money. I think people expected this jobs report to be not as good. And so I think that that's what they mean. They mean that it's not clear. This could be the start of a bad trend, but people expected this to be worse than normal.
And also, they revised the numbers down for January and February. Yeah. Jillian, 69,000 jobs. So not as good as the White House told us in January or February. Yet, I'm not really seeing a lot of growth, even though they're telling us that everything's so good. There's still 93 million people out of work.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a concern. I mean, it is hard to decipher from just one jobs report. But I think the concern is that this is looking worse than 2014. If 2014 was our boom year after the recession, that's not a great thing. And I think this is really the effect of a lot of very threatening regulatory policies kind of coming to roost. I mean, I think you've got businesses that are hesitant to expand. I think you've got investors that are hesitant to invest. And I think the economy is certainly paying the price for that.
I think a lot of people, Philip, have just simply given up. And that's what that unemployment number doesn't tell. And that's why I keep saying 93 million, yet you keep hearing, no, the economy's okay. I mean, an economist from the White House took to the press room today and said, things are okay. We're rolling along. We're going along. But it just doesn't seem to be resonating with the American public, because the polls show that fewer than 4 in 10 say that they're confident that we're on the right track.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's no question that people aren't feeling this economic recovery to the extent that it's an economic recovery. Part of that is slow wage growth. One of the points that people pointed to today is that wage growth continues to be relatively flat. And you're right, that the labor force, the size of people who have work or are looking for work, continues to decline. Part of that is a function of the fact that baby boomers are getting older and they're dropping out of the workforce. Part of it is that there was a big, steep decline during the recession. But it means that the economic picture is not as good as President Obama would like it to be, very much.
So if he keeps saying it over and over and over, though, Jillian, it doesn't really matter. It's what the reality is. If you've lost a job and someone's telling you things are really great, things are looking up, and you're sitting on your couch and you've just given up looking for work, I mean, you're not really buying that.
Yeah, it doesn't make it true. I mean, there's 62.8% labor participation rate. That's a lot of people. I mean, you can count out the elderly, but that's still a lot of people who have just given up on looking for a job. I think this has been a very weak recovery, and this latest jobs report shows that it's fragile.
And quick answer to both of you. I want to talk a little bit about Obamacare, because we know that that's affected some of these job numbers, and the administration has pushed off, some of these deadlines very quickly. How big of a factor does Obamacare play in this down the road?
Huge.
Yeah,
huge.
I mean, I've seen very little evidence. There's been every month since Obamacare went into effect, there's been job growth. I just don't see it.
All right, well, they've also pushed back a lot of those deadlines, too. So we'll see when they do eventually take effect. Thank you both.
Sure.
Thank you.
Panel, stay with us. Straight ahead, it's not a reality TV show. No, you're about to meet a real-life survivor. You will hear how he survived 66 days lost at sea. That's next.